So, clinical content is content that you could end up putting on maybe on your blog or sending to your email list, or it could just be something that you're using solely for your clinical work. But designing those things and having those things very visually appealing can be really effective, especially as we know for visual learners, or some kids really like animated things, and being able to add this into your clinical visuals can be really powerful in a lot of different ways. One of the ways that is really cool is for if you're making any type of visual. For example, let's say you are using the song Five Green and Speckled Frogs, and you're working with a young kiddo, but you want to have a visual to go along with the song and movements. You're making it very multisensory. You could create in something like Keynote or PowerPoint, you could create you can use a very simple background, and then you can find images and put those onto that background, and then you can actually animate all of those images. So really what you end up with is when you tap your screen on your iPad or your tablet, a log pops up with 5 jumping frogs. And that's really appeasing, very engaging for kids. And then maybe it taps to another screen that has something moving. And then you can actually formulate those so that there are different types of cues within your session that are very engaging. And you might not have to rely on musical cues, or that could be something that you're using for your clinical, if you're reducing the types of cues that you're using. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make simple things like, I know a lot of times we have laminated visuals, but there's a lot of ways to make these visuals really engaging on tablets or on your iPad. Another thing that you can make, and maybe through something like Canva or some other type of something, if it's Illustrator or another type of platform, are social stories. And the great thing about being able to use one of these platforms for social stories is you can make them really consistent. And that could maybe depend on the client that you're working with. If you have a client whose favorite color is blue, then maybe you create all of his stories that kind of have their own mini brand for this client, or maybe they're color coded because the client does better with color coded things. And this social story is, the blue one is for when I go swimming, and the red one is for when I go out to eat. And so you can do different things like this that make it really consistent, where you would be taking information from branding and really making cohesive content into your clinical work on how can you use that to support your clients and help them progress with their goals. One of my favorite ways that I've seen content created was for a bell choir. It was for tone chime choir. And, there's the old way of, you can use easels or, writing different things down, and students having different cue cards. But if you use something like PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides, or Prezi, you can actually have notation that is up, and maybe it's on a projector. And the really great thing about this is you can actually be able to cue a variety of students just by something on the computer for you. So if you're leading something really big and you want to make this content and make it in a way that you're not having to cue 5 different groups, you can actually do that on the computer, where you tap one thing and one chord comes up. So everybody who has C, E, and G knows that they need to play. You hit the button and that chord comes up. And really what ends up happening is you're technologically cueing them, and it's a visual cue, but you're able to cue them on what they need to do. And it makes it easier for you as a clinician to lead that. But it also makes it really visually engaging as well. And you can even bring some of those branding things into that. Can you color code it? Can you, make each bell choir song look different in certain ways, but make it look really consistent? Those are really things that everybody really latches onto, and it makes it cohesive and comfortable. And as we know, even with music, there's also visual expectations. People have that visually, and you can do that in these different types of clinical content as well. Something similar to social stories is worksheets or having different types of psychoeducational worksheets or different types of printouts that you might want to include as supports within your sessions. And Canva and these other platforms that we listed there are a lot of teachers on those platforms that have created different templates that are really easy to use, and you can go in and plug in exactly what you're looking for, if you're working on articulation goals, or if you're working on writing out particular coping skills. I just created one recently that was a volcano of coping skills. That was a template on there that was awesome. And so it can be a great place if you need to create particular worksheets to target academic skills or psychoeducational supports.
Yeah, it also serves as a memento, especially if you're working in acute psych, like those worksheets that you have. It can be, if you're working on listing coping skills or listing different feelings about a certain event that happened in someone's life, they can keep that and have it, and it's something that was meaningful to them. So, yeah.